Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another webinar from Neurologically Based Chiropractic and NeuroInfiniti. I'm going to zoom through this because I want to keep the time as short as I can, and we hope we have a little video to watch at the end. We hope that all works. But I want to start with this. This is right now chiropractic's greatest opportunity. Now, I know we've heard that several times over the years, but because of the changes in the last 20 years, and because of the research that's going on, I truly believe that this is our greatest opportunity, but we need to grasp it. So I'm going to talk about how to move from the structural pain-based practice to a scope of practice broadening neurologically founded chiropractic practice. I know we always believe that we're neurologically based, but we've gotten off track along the way. I'm going to talk about why we need to adapt, and we need to adapt as a profession very, very quickly. Time is running very short. I'll discuss why. I want to also talk about the traditional roles of stress and explain them, and easy steps as to how to shift your focus in your practice, and how to get access to DC interviews who have already made this change. And that's an important part. Don't talk to just me, but talk to the people that are doing this in their practice and their success levels. It's unbelievable what's happened with these people that have made this shift. And we all need to be aware that there's something greater for us out there. So what you need to know, and you need to buckle up because I'm going to be hitting pretty hard on this, but this is the reality of the situation right now. So let's get ready. Let's talk about this. This is Leonard White, PhD, Duke University. He is a neurobiologist. He's a PhD in neurobiology. It says, whether you aspire in a career of health profession or find yourself already there, I want you to know whatever you do with your patients and clients that are living with brain injury, and I'm going to paraphrase in here for a moment, brain injury is that subluxation at the neurological level. And that is the kind of sensory motor experience you might prescribe for your patients in the course of their activities of daily living, or even a more structural program of rehabilitation, and that means patient care. This is powerful. This has the potential to modulate the production of neurotrophins and shape the plasticity of circuits, be it a child with ongoing development and construction of neural circuits or an adult. These are powerful words about what he's talking about here. He goes on to say this, where developmental programs are being re-engaged and expressed anew or as compensation of the brain to injury and disease. I do a fair amount of my teaching here at Duke with students in the allied health professions, in particular with students that are becoming, get this, doctors in physical therapy. They're called physiatrists. The physical therapists now have a doctorate degree. What this means is that they have primary access ability, just like chiropractors now. They don't need to have referrals because they're doctors in physical therapy. And I love to talk about this point with that group of students. They're entering a profession that neither medicates the nervous system nor does it cut the nervous system. And I might suggest that they have the opportunity to do something even more powerful. They get to structure the sensory and motor experiences of the human body as a therapeutic modality that has the power to alter the structure and function of circuits in the brain and spinal cord. Even without pharmacological intervention or surgical intervention, it is possible to shape ongoing patterns of activity that can promote functional adaptations. The more we learn about these basic neuroscience principles of plasticity, the more effective can our interventions be. This is by this gentleman who is the main teacher and he works at Duke University for the neuroscience program. And here's what you need to know. The physiatrists, the doctors of physical therapy, have a plan. They have a program called Vision 2020, and that is to have 20 physiatrists in each state by the year 2020 doing brain work, the stuff that we've been doing all the way along but haven't grasped. That's why it's so important for us to get on board with this and start talking about chiropractic from a neurological foundation. So this is the reason for all of this push that I've been doing for the last 19 years. Evidence-based. We all talk about evidence-based. Well, here's the thing. The bone-on-nerve theory that was developed in 1895, it's been disproven. If you haven't listened to Heidi Havoc, you haven't heard her speak, you need to, because she will flat tell you it's not the case. It's not a bone-on-nerve that's the problem. But here's the thing, chiropractic continues to achieve fantastic results. The problem is that as a profession, we said all we need to do is know that chiropractic works. We don't need to do anything else, but it works. And that let the profession down. We failed our profession by not advancing the profession with evidence to show exactly why it worked when we knew that the bone-on-nerve theory was not viable. So new research offers an acceptable explanation, indeed even a greater future for that of chiropractic. Here's the big challenges, though. This is what I've discovered over the last 19 years of trying to advance this concept. The resistance to the profession to change. We're so happy and we can make so much money just pounding down the high spots that we really aren't paying attention to the fact that this is being taken away from us. And it's going to be taken away from us on a big way. And the other one is the move away from insurance-controlled income. I don't know how many times Dee Dee and I have had to confront the challenge right off the bat when they look at this, say, this is great, but is it covered by insurance? We need to escape this trap of everything that we do being paid for by insurance. There is life beyond insurance for chiropractors. As a matter of fact, you have a better opportunity for success out of the insurance-controlled income base. Chiropractic's at a crossroads. We have the divisions within the profession. We have the philosophical group that just loves to stay in philosophical discussions. They don't care about the rest of it. They just want to be philosophical about it. They don't care if there's evidence or not. Doesn't matter. Then we have the structural group. That's the group that now controls the whole practice. That's the one that talks about spinal care and curve care. This isn't a challenge that we don't get results with this, but it's not the end all and be all. Now we're developing the neurological group. And there's two divisions within that neurological group. We have the diplomates that are doing a great job, but we also have people that are understanding that it is neurological, but don't have that diplomate degree. You don't need the diplomate degree to understand and use neurologically based chiropractic in your practice. Those people with the degrees can do amazing things at a much different level. And now we have the medical group, a breakaway group in the profession who wants to administer drugs. I'm sorry, but if you start administering drugs, you're practicing medicine, not chiropractic. That's the way I feel about it. The structural group has taken control of the profession and has been for over the last 50 to 60 years. It's all about structure and spinal care and curvatures and spinal x-rays. It's all structural. They're setting the standards of practice based on the medical model for symptom reduction. We need to correct your curve. We need to get rid of these symptoms. And that's especially with the insurance game that came out. Now it's really in the medical model because you have to have a diagnosis to get reimbursed. We fell into a trap. Third-party pay has become the determining factor in care limitation. And to the point where if you have no evidence to carry on with care because the person has achieved pain relief, then you have no basis for ongoing care and care has to end. And then we start getting the group that says, if anything past that is overusage. It's overusage if you're trying to build insurance because insurance was never determined for that. That's one of the reasons we need to escape from the insurance game within chiropractic. Restriction of care limits and reduced reimbursements are killing the profession. People are sitting there as the ship is sinking and they're not even bailing anymore. They're just sitting there going like, I'm going to keep getting as much as I possibly can, even though they've reduced my limits on how much they're going to pay me. I'm still going to sit right here and just wait till the ship sinks. The profession today, the missing link. Vast majority of DCs, while thinking they deal with the nervous system, are still stuck in the concept of the structural model of vertebral subluxation and nerve root interference. Yes, you deal with the nervous system, but that doesn't work if that's your foundation for it because it's never been proven. So bridging this gap, My work over the last 19 years has been to provide direction, research, and instrumentation for the profession to reestablish the neural component in chiropractic. That's been my goal. Let's get back to the fact that we deal with the nervous system, and we deal with the nervous system at a level higher than we ever expected from the very beginning. BJ had some ideas. He got some of the clues of some of this. Some of the people in the past saw that chiropractic was working at a different level, but we didn't have the information and the knowledge about the brain at that time to truly understand what was going on. So my goal, I want to move the profession from pain to brain. That's my goal. A moment of truth for chiropractic. Here's the paradigm shift you've got to make in your head. And when you make it in your head and you explain it this way to your patients, it's a simple 3-step system of moving people away from signs and symptoms to neurological care. First thing is this. Punjabi says, 3 systems of the body. First system, the passive system. That's the bones and joints. They're passive. They do nothing on their own. And so that they do nothing on their own, guess what? They can't be the cause of the problem. And yet here we are holding up spines to show people that we deal with bones and joints. And that's why they call us back doctors and bone crackers, because we put that in their head by showing them that as what we do. Don't confuse what we do with how we do it. That's the problem. So the passive system, that's not the problem. Then we have the active system, muscles. The muscles create all the movement and action. And we think about that from a standpoint of the bones and joints. Yes, the muscles move the bones and joints, but the muscles move everything else in the body. Every system, cardiovascular, respiratory, digestive, elimination, reproduction, everything happens because of muscle activity. But guess what? Muscles can't act on their own, and so they can't be the cause of the problem. So just going and getting a massage does not deal with the cause of the problem. Then we have this. We have the control system. The central organizing authority of the body is the nervous system. And that's where the seat of all dysfunction happens. It starts in that area and moves down to the active system that affects the passive system. All dysfunction is in the central organizing authority, or the brain. So we know this. We're taught this. We're taught about subluxation, a bone that's not disconnected, but it's stuck in a position, or it's in a malposition. We learned that. And then we learned what the cause was, and we learned this very quickly. Subluxations are caused by physical, mental, and chemical stressors, or the 3 T's. So we learned that, but we left it at that. We never moved past that point. And this is where we failed, and we were absolutely failed in our education, because we never addressed that. They said, just learn this, and that's all you need to learn, and then find the high spot and pound it down. That's it. But we need to understand, and we need to be able to explain how stressors cause subluxations. Once you understand that there is a process behind the creation of the vertebral subluxation, we need to stop and say, well, wait a minute. If that's the case, if there's a process behind the creation of it, that means vertebral subluxation is not a cause, it's a sign or a symptom. And so as we've been critical of the medical profession for treating signs and symptoms, we find that we've been doing exactly the same thing because we never addressed the cause. So in order to fully explain how the vertebral subluxation develops, first you have to understand how the central nervous system responds to stressors. How do those stressors actually create this? And once you understand this mechanism, explaining how the adjustment improves central nervous system function and therefore improves health makes it very easy to explain neurologically based chiropractic. And what this does is this releases us from having to do diagnosis and treatment, because that's where we're trapped right now, diagnosis and treatment in order to get reimbursement. That's the practice of medicine. Chiropractic was never supposed to be about diagnosis and treatment of disease and illness. It was something bigger than that. The neurological subluxation. The majority of the profession adheres to the vertebral subluxation as cause. And that limits the development of the neurological foundation. We've got to let that thing go. We've got to let vertebral subluxation as cause go. Once we do that, there's a freedom for us. You know, and the term subluxation, while it has an important historical context for chiropractic, it's not ideally used in the application for neurologically based chiropractic. But I use it as the neurological subluxation because I'm not willing to give up the term subluxation as a chiropractic foundation. We just need to shift the concept about it. Even B.J. Palmer was challenged when he began talking about the mental impulse because he was moving away from the vertebral subluxation. And even he got challenged over that. Get this. All dysfunction begins with the failure of neurological self-regulation. That's where issues begin. This is all based on a paper out of Holland several years ago, and it's an incredible, intriguing paper. And I've broken it down so you can understand what this is all about. Integration of information into the brain is called processing resources that take the information and they process the information and then they respond. The brain's appraisal of the stressor plays a major role in the body's response. So what we see is information coming into the brain, and the brain becomes overloaded with the processing resources just being overwhelmed until finally information comes in, can't go to where it's supposed to go. It ends up going into the wrong area, which gets stimulated and responds, and now you have an improper response. So you have garbage in and garbage out, and the processing resources just get even more and more stressed. Allocation of the brain's processing resources becomes the disruption in the integration of information process. Every task is based on sensory input before action. Every task is based on sensory input before action. So when we talk about above, down, and inside out, we forgot that first of all, it has to be outside in, down, up to get the action to start. We have to have information to begin with. Processing resources of sensory input is critical for the speed and the accuracy of the neurological response. So if the processing resources are already overloaded, we're going to have a delay response and we're going to have a loss of accuracy of the response. It won't be an appropriate response. Processing resource interference, neurological efficiency challenges can be caused by, number one, resource pool limited reach. You're doing multitasking. You just can't handle anymore. You've got so much stuff going on, you cannot process it all. And we continue to try, and yet what happens then, we start to have an overload. Hierarchy of the task. If you have all sorts of stuff on your plate, and you're walking down the street, and you step on the street, and you step in front of a bus, and it lays on the horn, all of a sudden, you're overloaded. You're distracted. You cannot focus on the rest of it because something has come along that says, this is more important, and now everything else gets shuffled down the order. Cognitive demand and ability. As the resource pool limited becomes reached, as the hierarchy of the task is involved, our ability for cognitive, clear thinking becomes challenged. The prefrontal cortex is one of the first areas that become overloaded, and it is the conductor of the brain. It conducts the activity in the brain, including that of the cerebellum, and it becomes overloaded, and you cannot think clearly. The cognitive ability diminishes. Lack of recovery. We have what's going on, stress over a long period of time. We see that all of a sudden we start to form patterns in the brain that are now stuck. And now we get stuck into this inappropriate system loop, and that's that safety pin cycle we talked about forever. And that's all part of the processing resource challenges that go on due to stressors that create the neurological subluxation that feed downline into the systems of the body. Here's the real problem. The brain is an impaired ability to regulate itself. It cannot get itself back on track. And so it gets stuck into patterns that it develops that are considers to be, I need to do this now, but it was only supposed to be for a short term, but it can't get out of that loop, and now it gets stuck into it. And patterns develop through repetition. So if you're going to a job you don't like, day after day after day, you develop neurological patterns trying to deal with that job. If you work in a position That's not good. You develop a pattern that locks you into those positions. Patterns, both good and bad, develop through repetition. This is one of the reasons why we need to have ongoing chiropractic care to break patterns, because the new patterns take repetition to develop. So if you only see a person one time, you may put an interrupt in that pattern, but guess what? It's going to come back unless you keep retraining it, retraining it, retraining it. Functions of the nervous system. Sensory input gathers information to monitor changes or stimulus occurring inside and outside the body. That takes that sensory information, goes into the brain system. It gets integrated and be processed to interpret sensory input to decide if action is needed. And then once it decides what action is needed, it puts motor output, responds to the integrated stimulus, and activates the muscles, glands, and systems. That in turn then feeds back to the sensory input. That's the way the loop works. But what happens is, if we become sensory overloaded, we have a problem. What happens is, on sensory overload, the integration doesn't happen correctly, and that starts to affect what's going on as output from that brain. So the motor output now becomes challenged. That feeds back up to the sensory system. The sensory system is now getting even more overloaded, and we eventually work our way down to disease and illness and death, because we can no longer cope with what's going on in our environment. We can no longer adapt. And when we can no longer adapt, the system will fail completely. Central organizing authority. We have to have a complete system, neural integrity. And this is very simplified compared to what if you're doing a neurodiplomate program. So understand, this is the only level you need to first begin with, is understand how it works. Sensory input. Sensory receptors feed into the cord, feed into the thalamus, prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, hippocampus, hypothalamus, cortex, cerebellum. And it doesn't do it as a one-step process, like go here, go here, go here. It goes as it explodes into it. It goes throughout the whole, it happens in a nanosecond, as the way we're wired, and it goes back and forth, and these areas of the brain communicate back and forth with one another, trying to decide what's going on. The cortex holds the memory pattern based on your history. Events that have happened in your history that were important were stored as a memory in the cortex. And that's used as a library system when information comes in and goes through the rest of this to say, have we had this happen before? Yes, these are the steps we used to take to deal with this. And then it drives down so that you can do motor action. So the cortical activity, that brainwave pattern activity, is where our experiences are built on hardwired neural patterns that are stored with emotional triggers. We're an emotional being. That's where the amygdala kicks into play. That's where fear kicks into play. And it generates activity. The hippocampus is responsible for converting short-term memory into long-term memory. And it does it by having enough information to say, hey, this is important, remember this. The hypothalamus controls what's going on throughout the rest of the body. It feeds back down into the systems to say, we need to act this way. The cerebellum keeps us oriented in space, allows us to move and stay balanced. There's a direct relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the cerebellum. And if the prefrontal cortex, like I said, doesn't work right because of stressors, the cerebellum doesn't work right. And you begin to lose your ability to orient yourself in space, to the point where when we start to get sick, we don't even want to stand up anymore. As a matter of fact, if you get so sick, you have to lie down because the cerebellum's not working well anymore. It says, nope, I can't keep doing this. So all of these things are tied together. The cortical activities then stimulate the limbic system responses to say whether we need to be in sympathetic mode or whether we can recover with parasympathetic and heal. And so when we're stressed out and we have a dangerous situation, sympathetics will kick into play. And when it's over, we need to return to normal balance. What's happening is this is not going on. We're not returning back. All of this creates motor action in the body. Cortical activities, those learned experiences, they control what's going on in the limbic system and the sympathetic, parasympathetic over time. So if you end up being over-aroused and in fear and in danger all the time, what's happening is you're going to get pushed to the sympathetic level and you're going to stay in fight-flight mode all the time. There is no healing in fight-flight. Sympathetic modes are for short-term defense only. Your body never gets a chance to heal and get back into balance. And we see this going on now. It's incredible. Across the board, we see it all the time. And that sympathetic is about the autonomic storm. One of the clients asked, saying, well, shouldn't it be the same pattern every time? No, we're all unique. And one of the things about the autonomic storm, when we get stuck into this imbalance within the autonomics, it is unique to each individual, like fingerprints, how it responds across that board. So we need to be able to look at all of the autonomic responses to say, is this person in balance? Are they able to return from a stress situation to a recovery? Ideal neuroplasticity, the ability to adapt and respond, to reorganize the brain, to build new pathways, new gateways, requires sensory input. There's a thing called the alert response mechanism that we don't even know that's going on in there. We're not even aware, but it happens at a subconscious level, and we all have it. Women are much more sensitive about this than men because they live in a much more dangerous world than we do, because we're out there. And this alert response mechanism says danger, danger, danger at a subconscious level before you're even aware of it. Walking down a dark alley, women will not do it because they're smart enough to realize it's dangerous. Men will do it and go and get mugged. We're a little numb about all of this. This is sort of like the deer in the field, where the deer stop and they think that there's something going on. They pause. Neurophysiological responses happen with the alert response mechanism. Pupils dilate. Respiration stops, heart rate goes down, sense of smell increases, vision increases. Those are all for being able to say there's something not right. I need to find out what it is. If they see what it is, they go into fight-flight mode, and they run away or they get taken down and become food, and their problems are over. But in the fight-flight response, endocrine, immune, and nervous systems kick into full gear of defense only. Then we need to recover. If you ran away from the lion and you got away from him, then you don't need to stay in this fight-flight all the time. You can recover and get back to normal. This is the information that Robert Sapolsky writes about and has written books about, called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and I suggest you get it and read it, talking about these neurological responses and how this affects our health. So, this is all the foundation for the development of abnormal patterns of neurological responses. That's the neurological subluxation. It provides a reasonable, coherent, and even a simple explanation and even prediction of patterns of interference. We can even see where the patient is now having a problem and what we need to address neurologically. Differences in performance can be reduced or even eliminated with appropriate training. Appropriate training. And the key word here is appropriate. We know that we can just pound down the high spots as chiropractors and get results. And on the majority, we get good results. But if you're doing it that way, I can guarantee you that you don't get good results all the time. In fact, there are times when you do that kind of care, you get an adverse response because it wasn't an appropriate approach for that patient. We've never had a way of being able to determine exactly what approach was perfect or ideal for that particular patient. So if we can determine the source of the interference to the processing resources in the brain and measure the outcome of this interference, we will then be able to measure the effectiveness of the care from an appropriate application. That only makes sense if we can see that they're sympathetically over-aroused. And so we're going to now start to work at how do we engage the parasympathetic and disengage the sympathetics. What is it we need to do? Maybe it starts with a breathing exercise. Or maybe it starts with chiropractic care that doesn't see somebody 5 times in a day with high velocity and massive input into a system that's already overstimulated. Maybe we only need to see them twice a week, but for a longer period of time. That would be much more appropriate application for somebody in that situation. But we need to be able to measure it, first of all, to find out where they are. This is just papers of research that support what I've been talking about here. You can get these from Dee Dee. That's not a problem. She'll send you these. I cannot keep up with Dr. Heidi Havoc. She keeps publishing stuff that is absolutely incredible. This is a lot of her work, and there's more stuff she's already published again. It's over, folks. The research is done. It's in place. It's quality research that cannot be challenged. It is wonderful stuff, and it supports chiropractic from a neurological standpoint. It says that what we do changes the brain. So we need to get onto this. So how do we move the practice from pain to brain? Well, it starts with the DC changing the intent of the care. If your intent of the care is to straighten the spine or correct a curve, that's your intent from a structural foundation. If your intent of care is to improve neurological function, that's going to change everything. Number one, it's going to change how you measure what you're going to be looking for to be able to improve neurological function. And it's going to change how you post-measure to see if you change the nervous system. It has nothing to do with whether somebody has coagulating plebly or bupitis. It doesn't need a diagnosis. What it needs to say is, yes, your nervous system's not in balance. We can prove it. Our goal now is to start doing care to bring the nervous system back into balance. That's our role. Our role never was diagnosis and treatment. You need to include all the staff in this shift. You can't just do it by yourself. The staff need to understand what you're doing in your office, and they need to get enrolled in a bigger picture. So what's the benefits? First of all, we address the cause and not the symptoms. And the symptom includes vertebral subluxation. This is a bigger vision for your practice and for the patient. It's not a measure of saying, yes, I'm here to get rid of my pain. Okay, you got rid of my pain, thanks, bye. This is bigger. Stressors go on all our life. And the only reason people end up with signs and symptoms and come into me with complaints is because they're carrying their stress to the point where it's developed this issue. So the issue is not about anything more than stressors finally expressing themselves. Justification for care beyond symptom relief. Forget about insurance. This is between you and the patients now. This is about how far down the line can we improve your neurological function. That's our goal. How far down the line? Because in your life, I can guarantee you, stressors are going to continue. You know, and we watch this. We watch people come in and they get a scan done, and then they start to improve, and then all of a sudden we see a terrible scan down the road, and we find out that what's happened to them, number one, they lost their job, they're doing a house build or a remodel, or they've had a sickness in the family, or perhaps it's just now at an age state where their system is no longer able to continue. But we can see that, and we can change our approach as to what's going on with them based on their current situation. It's the foundation for lifetime care that we always talk about in chiropractic. We know that people do better under lifetime care, but not to avoid having pain. It's to improve neurological function. We can measure the effect of care on brain function. We can measure it lifetime. We can measure it over a period of time. We can measure whether it's changing the cortical patterns. We can measure whether it's changing the limbic system parasympathetic sympathetic balance. We can see whether they respond better to different types of stressors or not. We can do all of this. It's here, it's now. And the need for care is no longer based on symptoms. Oh, you're a chiropractor? Oh, I don't need you. I'm feeling great. It's no longer about having symptoms to come to see a chiropractor. It's how well is your nervous system functioning? How well are you really truly dealing with the stressors in your life? And it adds an income center. We have people and I've taken this on and are now seeing $20,000 more a month as an income center on an $18,000 investment. It doesn't take much to figure this out, that even after paying for the unit, at the end of the year, they're over $200,000 ahead of the game on an $18,000 investment. It's not a cost, it's an investment. That's an incredible return on your investment. Try to get that in the stock market today. Good luck. So steps to neurologically based practice. Stop using the spine in an explanation. The minute you do that, you're structurally based, and that's what's going to stay in their mind. Back doctor, bone doctor. You get a model of a brain and say, this is where the problem is. Use the biochart to shift the intent of care. That comes with the program. We teach you how to use the biochart so that people enroll in this because they suggest that what they want to have is improved neurological function, not just to get rid of their pain. Explain the three parts of the body, the passive, the active, and the control system. Which system do you think would be best for us to address? The passive system, the active system, or the control system? And when they say that, well, obviously the control system. That's what we do in this office. We're a neurologically based office. We deal with what's going on in your central nervous system and why it's causing your problem. Now we need to take a look and do an examination to show us exactly where it's going wrong. Base your examinations on neurological function challenges. And those are the issues that you're going to address in care, and those are the issues you're going to address over care, the period of care, to show that you're reducing the neurological challenges. Set the goal of care to improve neurological function. That's the goal. Make sure you set it with the patient. Their understanding is that's why they're there, to improve their nervous system function. How does it get better than that? What does this do for chiropractic? It elevates who we are to a very high level. And we need to get on this because the physical therapists are not stupid. They're watching this. They've been watching this for a long time. Use approved neurological measurement instruments for pre and post testing. To me, this is really, really important. There's lots of instruments out there that make outrageous claims that aren't FDA approved, that you need to be very, very careful about what you bring into your practice and what you use for testing so that it cannot be challenged. NeuroInfiniti is FDA approved, it's CE, it's Health Canada, it meets the standards, and it's used in research labs around the world. This is an incredible piece of equipment. So, other studies suggest that chiropractic does. Here's what it says. Improves cortical function and balance, improves autonomic nervous system function, improves risk evaluation, language skills, motivation, how we are able to think, improves our memory, and brain output to 45% improvement to long muscles, improves digestion and quality of life. It shows that it reduces stress levels and inflammation process, which is the foundation for every disease, reduces muscle tension, reduces fatigue, and it also reduces pain. So what does the chiropractic profession do? They only focus on pain reduction and forget about all the rest of this stuff that's way more important. It's time for us to get into the game. It's time for every chiropractor to start looking at neurologically based chiropractic. And you need to have the instrumentation to do this. So you need to have a NeuroInfiniti. It's a 15-minute dynamic computerized test, and it's designed specifically for chiropractic offices. And it also has an income center attached for bio and neurofeedback that can generate a lot of income for your office and pay for the instrument very quickly. We've had a doctor who just signed up. He's got the NeuroInfiniti. He came to a training. He's back in the office. What he's doing is he's converting patients to a year-long primary care because of their intent is to improve nervous system function. He's had over 50 of these people that now he's generated $120,000 just on educating them on that first level of care from a neurological foundation of chiropractic. $120,000 on an $18,000 investment. And they're not a year yet. We're talking about 4 months. So you're missing an opportunity, and while you're missing the opportunity, other professions are going to be jumping on board, and we're going to be in challenge. I want to see if this works. I'm going to try to play this and hope that the sound comes through. And Dee Dee, I'm going to ask you to tell me if it will. If the sound doesn't come through, let me just go one more slide first. I want you to take a look at this. I'm going to put this back up after the call. So if it doesn't go through, you can get in touch with Dee Dee and she can get it to you to be able to see this. But let's see if this works. Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Nachosh from Lebanon, New Hampshire.
Perfect.
I practice with Emma McClellan.
Can you hear it?
I've been in practice for 14 years. We've been
Yes.
master's members for 14 years. Getting professional coaching on a weekly basis has been an invaluable part of our life and our growth in practice and in our family life as well. We have been going to seminars and learning everything we can about chiropractic and about healthcare all along. And about 5 years ago, we got SRE scans done by NeuroInfiniti at one of the seminars. And it was an aha moment for us, both of us. We realized we live a chiropractic lifestyle, we talk a chiropractic wellness lifestyle, and this was the next step to be able to show that what we do changes everything in somebody's brain, in their body, and how they can function, how they can heal. And so thankful we took a step to actually purchase a NeuroInfiniti. We've incorporated it over the last 3 years. We use it every day. We do evaluations, SRE evaluations. We use biofeedback. We use neurofeedback. We use it to schedule our other therapies as well with confidence. My approach with patients has gone way up. My efficiency with the visit has gone way up. I don't feel like I need to do everything possible. I know what I need to do. I do what needs to be done and move on. The results are better. We're both having more fun in practice and talking about the stresses that people deal with on a daily basis, the neurologically based stresses. Our practice has grown consistently over the last 5 years. We've had our best year ever, over and over and over again, and I'm so thankful for that. And I wish that more chiropractors, if I could reach out and say, here's what you need to do. You need to understand what we have at our hands. You need to understand how the stresses are impacting people's lives and how it's holding them back from thriving, healing, and recovering, and having a truly healthy lifestyle. Get chiropractic evaluations like the NeuroInfiniti. Get the NeuroInfiniti. Start using it to help people understand where their stresses are and why they're not healing well. Get professional coaching. There's so much we don't know, and there's so much that you need to know about changes you can make, business acumen, reaching out with people, communication. The communication of neurologically based chiropractic didn't come overnight. You have to work on it and refine it and understand it better yourself. And Master Circle has been massively helpful in helping us do that as well. So look into the NeuroInfiniti, get a NeuroInfiniti, get professional coaching, and change your practice.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, we'll go through to the next note. Oh.
Just open the PowerPoint back up.
Trying to get back to it. Here we go. Oh. What I want to say about now, come on, there we go. What I want to say now is that I'm working with Bob Hoffman and the Master Circle, and we're putting together a program of coaching that's a year-long program. Dee Dee can send you the information on it. That's sort of above and beyond what we're talking about at this moment, but it's great. Oh, shit. Do it the shortcut way. There we are. There we go. We'll get this back up. But right now, this is the time for you to move. It's the end of the year. It's time. We have a very short window before we can't order any more this year. If you're going to get involved, I would suggest you do it very quickly. Talk to Dee Dee. She can put you in touch with people that are using this to give you more information. Don't hesitate. This is the time to act. So with this, I will sign off and wish you the best of the next year and Merry Christmas to all. You want to see if there's any questions?
Sure. If there's any questions, you can raise your hand through the control panel. I'll be happy to unmute you. Or if you'd just like to make a comment. All right, I think we're good.
All right. Super.